usually for weddings. He actually had it on my wedding invitation, where the cookies on my wedding invitation. But typically it's tzedek, the mishpat, the chesed, the rachamim. The Israel makes a binding agreement with Hashem to live a certain way. And mishpat was Abba's life. It was his professional life, his legal life, it was his home life, it's how he dealt with people. But he loved it. He loved being a lawyer. It was such a big part of him. He loved helping people. There's a way to do mishpat. Sometimes they seem to be contradictory. Mishpat, chesed, and rachmim. There's a way to do it. And he taught us that way. And there were so many examples, little things over the years. You know, everybody knows my father in a certain way, and the president of the shul, and the lawyer, and family, and they're all, little things along the way where he just taught us by example. It wasn't so much saying things as an example, there were some words here, but even as 7 years old, and we're living in Silver Spring, Maryland. And it was 1981, and it was the year of the first Lebanon War. And I came into the room and I saw this guy on the TV, and he's watching, he's engrossed. And I didn't understand why he was so engrossed in television. I was like, you know about yourself, but we just really understand. And I said, there's a war going on. He explained to me, I understand there's a war going on, thousands and thousands of miles away. And he said, without Israel, Israel doesn't have any. That was when I was single, had a big, obviously, impact on my life. I'm not sure he knows that because in fact, although I did tell him later when I made the decision to stay in Israel at the yeshiva, and he came with me. He came to visit and came to Bar Ilan with me to go look at the school and to go look at the university with me and to see the place where I was going to be. And I told him this story, and I could see it was hard for him. But he knew that it was the right thing. He knew that this is what he had taught me. And he couldn't say, and he wouldn't say, well, now I have to go back. Because he lived his life in a certain way. And he portrayed through many, many things. Like when we came back to New York and we went to Shiva Prasheim, Dalshin, or Koneski, the first leaders there. That was the first time we really had real rabbanim in our lives every day. And we went. And the respect that my father had for the rabbanim was something that hard for me to even understand, and he always had that. And if we asked Michelle and one of us talked bad about any rock, it didn't matter who it was, that's when we would hear it. Like, there was no such thing. There was no such thing as talking bad about the Torah, talking in a negative way. I don't know. There's some things people don't know, some things that people don't know, but every Sunday, there were lines of people at the door, and it would be one person needing tzedakah, and it would be one person needing legal advice. And it would be one person who I met a stranger on the plane and said to me, what your name is, and I told him, and said, I once had a problem, and I went to a Rav in the 5 counts and said, if there's anything any Jewish person in the 5 counts has a problem, they should go to Harvey Werblowsky. And that's how he lived his life. Every part of his life was, every part of his life was like that. Those are the little things that my father taught us, through example in his life. And as the Rav said, he was tenacious, but he was fiercely loyal. He loved his children, and he wanted the best for them. And the best could be coming home with a 98 on a test and saying, where's the other 2 points? But being actually serious about where's the other 2 points. Because he believed you could get 100. And if you could get 100, you should get 100. And that was his belief. He worked himself up from a young kid from, very little means to a high-powered lawyer. But it wasn't, like I said, he didn't know it from looking at it. He didn't live like that. He didn't live wealthy lifestyle. He didn't live showing off. He didn't live even talking about his work. In fact, one of the most amazing things about my father was he never talked about his work. Ever. Not at home. Maybe with my mom sometimes, but we never heard names, cases that there's no such thing. He would never talk about those things in front of us because those were private. Those were legal cases, those were private, those were people's business, and it's not something he would discuss in front of other people. And again, it was about being a shot, being straight and being forward, and that's just how he lived his life. I could go on, but there's a lot of us. And I do have to say something for Israel also. For we call it sibling, we don't want to be first that's the feeling. I'm sure there's things we could have done over the last 4 years. We tried, we did our best, but we were lacking. I have to give a special thank you to a few people. First of all, his aid took the last couple of years for him. And 24/7 with him, and really helped the family in a time of need. But he just helped the family, treated my father with respect, and became his friend. Somebody he'd rather be with early than with us most of the time. And I just wanted to say thank you for that. My sister, who took on the burden of all of the medical stuff and all of what went with that, and 24/7 phone calls, and with 100 kids at home. And I till this day, I don't really know how she managed it, but living so far away, it's hard. And I was only able to do it because of the work and the burden that we took on. And her family, of course, and Dan and the kids welcomed at home for endless shabbosim over the last 4 years. So many more shabbosim than I ever wanted to spend in Lakewood. But their house was open to all of us all the time. And to get to, in fact, down. Alex, my father, treated him with all the most respect. Sat him at the shop table, moved him up and down when he wasn't comfortable, entertained him, made sure he was had everything he needed. Overturned their house, had him and the 8 living there for years. We can't thank you enough. I love my sister.
I think you know, my father has been sick for the better part of the last 4 years. Since suffering a debilitating stroke and subsequent madness setbacks. In our family, we have come to mark our time with Abba as before and after this challenging time. I would like to focus on Abba's healthy years when he was a person who we and many of you remember best. My father was a proud 3rd-generation from American Jew, the only acceptable type of baby in our house. He was exceptionally proud of his father, and unfortunately, only one of his uncles remained showing Torah in his house. He wore that badge with pride, and in Hara, all of his children had followed his path. He was a child of his beloved North Bergen, and mere mention of that name would bring a smile to his face.
All right.
In his own way, he would become an important part of every community in which he lives. In fact, he was the past president of this very school. Abba never needed or wanted a fuss to be made about anything. He was perhaps the most unassuming
My
person to
phone is
hear,
very kosher.
except for maybe his hunger that he treated himself to. He never drove a fancy car. He was a man who didn't need much to make him happy. What he did need, though, was to help people. Many people in Klal Yisrael of all types of backgrounds, from Rabbanim, Haskanim, Abadabatim, found their way to his door, and helped them he would. It wasn't about the money, it was about helping people.
My phone's doesn't allow.
Especially if it wasn't glamorous, he would step into the role, that showed who he was. He didn't want or ask for any notoriety. He would listen and help in any way he could. The stories, from the time any of us can remember, are too numerous to count. From the time he and Nani took him to live with us, and they started to care him for years. He was constantly looking for how that people trusted him implicitly. We were once told by someone that worked with Abba, and to whom such things mattered quite a bit, that he would trust Harvey Werblowsky in a room with uncounted money. He had a very clear picture in his mind between right and wrong, black and white. There was no middle ground. If he felt it was wrong, it was radioactive to him, and that was it. However, what made him happiest, his true passion, was his family. He loved his children, and while he could be strict sometimes, mainly with the boys, he relished his role of baby. He was a complete pushover when it came to children and the grandchildren. He never smiled like he did once the next generation made their entrance. He would attend any and every event that he could to be involved and part of their lives, no matter where in the world they were. So all of you grandchildren and great grandchildren, he cherished every one of you. There's so much I can say about my father, and expect that we will as we move through this beautiful time, and even then it will never be enough. For so long, Abba was simply always there until he wasn't, and that has made the past few years so difficult. It was like shutting a switch. We have comforted somewhat that Abba is no longer in pain, no longer embarrassed by his physical state, but we will miss him terribly. Thank you to everyone that has been there to help with Abba and his challenges these past few years. Thank you to everyone who put in the effort to come and see Abba. Thank you to Levaya for learning with Abba and continuing with Lisa when he was home briefly after the very first difficult Kufa. It meant so much to him. Thank you to all my siblings and their spouses for all the sacrifices that you made these past few years to be there with Abba, each in your own way. A special thank you to Dr. Freeman and to Erwin for being so kind to Abba and treating him with respect and dignity throughout. It meant so much to us that you cared for our father. Mommy, as hard as this has been for us, we can't even imagine how impossible this has been for you. But as you and Abba always reminded us, we can get through this together, as difficult as it may be, as long as we do it together. Abba, I want to ask Taylor from you, please give me your ship for all and for all of Klal Yisrael. No, we need it now more than ever. Bila Hamadas Lanazak, Amafa, Hashem Lakim, Divine Al Kohan. I'm going to call up my sister Yala to say a few verses.
We get covered up, burns someone, and she's very tired. There were many times over the last 4 years when we thought the end was near, but my father always proved us wrong, which I'm sure made him very happy. There's nothing he loved more than being right. And as much as I didn't want to be growing up, he often was. My father was larger than life. He was a presence from the moment he walked into a room. He knew everyone and everyone knew him. He was brilliant, scrupulously honest, stubborn, and very direct. Things were either right or they were wrong, and we were always taught to do what was right, without any expectation of praise or gratitude. There wasn't anything he wouldn't do for someone he cared about, professionally or personally. Growing up in our house meant many late-night visitors after my father came home from a long day of work. He would take them into the sunroom where they would sit for hours, pouring their hearts out and seeking his counsel about very personal and delicate matters. And it didn't end with that one conversation or visit. There were many nights my father could not sleep because he was so worried about people, about their families and their futures. And when he couldn't sleep, I would hear him go downstairs in the middle of the night to get ices, because ices always made everything better. To know my father is to know that he had 5 great loves. He loved his family, he loved Yiddishkeit and living a life of Torah. He loved being an attorney, God only knows why. He loved Eretz Yisrael, and he loved Entenmann's. There was nothing more important to my father than his family, and we were his greatest nachas. He was a man with no hobbies. He worked and spent time with his family, particularly his grandchildren, and that is what made him the happiest. My parents were blessed with 8 children and raised us to understand that family is everything. I'm often asked if the 8 of us are close, and I always answer there was no other option. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't speak with each of my sisters multiple times a day. Our spouses learned very quickly that they married the 8 of us. My father would not miss the family simcha, no matter where or when it took place. He was a fixture at all of his grandchildren's schools. He came to every sitter and Chumash play, every Haskalah Samara, every Little League or basketball game, every graduation. It didn't matter what time of day it was or how inconvenient it may have been. He attended every event with a huge smile and an open wallet. Everyone knew when Zadie was in the building. Being a frum Jew was always important to my father. As the years went by, my father grew in his own Yiddishkeit and made many changes in his life and in our family to accommodate that. My parents sent all of us to yeshiva our entire lives, which was an expense I could only begin to comprehend once I had my own children. Nothing was more important to my father than raising all of us to be Shomrei Torah and mitzvos. That was the home we grew up in and the values that we lived by. If any of us stepped out of line or pushed back against those values, we were scared into submission. And for those of you who knew my father well, you know that I'm not kidding. As adults, my siblings and I would joke that our father ruled with fear, but behind everything he said and did, there was tremendous love. When it came to any aspect of Yiddishkeit, my father spared no expense. Everything that was brought or prepared for Shabbos or Yom was the best of the best. In his later years, he made time in his busy schedule to have a set Rusa. He commissioned sparring, and he and my mother made tremendous personal sacrifices to be able to support those in the family that wanted to learn in yeshiva, some for many, many years. It was a good thing he enjoyed working, as retirement was not an option. My father felt very strongly that his ability to support the learning of Torah brought tremendous harm and nachas to our family. And it's hard to disagree when you look at the legacy he left behind. He and my mother resolved to raise 8 children who are all Shomrei Torah and mitzvos, to marry each of them off to 8 sons and daughters-in-law, all of whom are Shomrei Torah and mitzvos. They have Kanina her 39 grandchildren, 7 great-grandchildren, 1 that was born just this week. Every single one of them either attended or is currently attending yeshiva. This is a legacy that unfortunately is almost non-existent in today's world and speaks for itself. Several years ago, my father was able to fulfill a lifelong dream of dedicating his Sefer Torah in honor of my grandparents. I remember him planning the Hafnasa Sefer Torah for months. It was as important as any wedding he had ever made. The Sefer Torah was given to Shayashiv, an institution that was very dear to my father, and to honor his many years of friendship with Rosh Yeshiva Rav Meir. My son Eitan had the privilege of being the first grandchild to leave from that Torah and his bar mitzvah. The nachas that brought to my father was immeasurable. My father loved that Torah. We would often joke that he was his 9th child. In fact, in my parents' house, there is a wedding picture of each of us lying in the staircase with a picture of my father with his Sefer Torah sits prominently on the front hallway table. As an attorney, my father was second to none. He was brilliant, he had an incredible work ethic, he was extremely sought after for his professional expertise. Friends, neighbors, acquaintances, people he knew well, and people who barely knew all came to him for legal advice, whether it was his field of practice or not. He was tough, and he did not sugarcoat his opinions. But if he advocated for you, it was a sure bet you were in safe hands. Realizing how smart my father was and his ability to help others, planted the seed very early on for me to go to law school. My father instilled in us a love for Eretz Israel at a very young age. He was known to make 5 or 6 trips to Israel in any given year to see his children and grandchildren that lived there. And sometimes he would go simply because he hadn't been there in a couple of months. Much to my mother's dismay, he was never really interested in traveling elsewhere, unless it was on a stopover to Israel. He was as happy as he ever was walking the streets of Yerushalayim, stopping at every bakery along the way. When I was 14, my father took me to Israel for the first time, and we spent a week traveling the country. I remember taking buses every day for hours. If you know my father, then you know he couldn't sit still, and he didn't own a pair of sneakers. Yet in Israel, he was thrilled to sit on a bus for 2 or 3 hours just to climb a mountain with his outsiders in the heat. His dream was to move to Israel, but personally, I think that he really just wanted to move to the Citadel. Several years ago, my parents started a tradition where they would take all the grandchildren who were celebrating their bar bat mitzvah to Israel for a few weeks in the summer. I remember working with him on the itinerary. It was so important to him that the kids had an amazing time, and we would discuss and revise the schedule daily. That trip became something all the grandchildren looked forward to, until the summer that COVID derailed their plans. My father was devastated. For me, one of the hardest parts of these last few years, and there were many, was knowing that my father would never be able to travel to Israel again. Until now. This is not how I wanted you to get there, but I know that there's no place in the world you would rather be. There are many people who have been invaluable to our family over these last few years, and advice that hope must be given. Dr. Doug Frieden, without ever having met my father, you took it upon yourself to oversee every aspect of his medical care from the moment he suffered the initial stroke. You have taken our call day and night, answering every question, reviewing every scan, giving us your expert medical advice. The vast medical knowledge that you possess with patience and explaining every aspect of what my father was going through in layman's terms, and your ability to keep our spirits and Luna up while being completely forthright have carried my family through. You have been on the front lines every day and every night, doing everything in your power to bring his reform. You are a health tested like no other, and I'm so thankful to you for guiding this through it all. It's actually a complicated legal process. We are indebted to you for your time and patience. Thank you for not only being an incredible attorney, but very good friends. Erwin, the greatest aide and really the greatest friend that my father had these last few years. You treated him with the most incredible sensitivity and kindness. You stayed with him day and night. You took on every new task, every medication, every piece of equipment with concern and patience, making sure you understood exactly what needed to be done and why, so as not to make any mistakes. You brought such comfort to our family knowing we had you to care for our father when we were unable to be with him. May God grant your family health and happiness always. To my brothers and sisters, the home team, we've done everything we could to care for Abba and for Mom the past 10 years. Having so many siblings was and is a tremendous bracha and allowed us to have a division of labor as we each had our piece of the puzzle to handle while maintaining our own households. We had to navigate the medical field, the legal process, visiting Abba, taking care of the house, making sure Mom was taken care of, and a million other things we had imagined.
I want to get it for Aiden and Ciara, and then me and him will be the parents.
Messages and voice notes happening at all hours
You
of
don't
the
have to
day
buy.
and night. At least for some of us who have worked.
No, but that's not the booth.
Sleep was a thing of the past. We only had one goal: get Abba well and bring him home. We did everything in our power to make that happen. Some days were tougher than others, and sometimes we did not always agree on the best course of action. But we had one singular focus, and we did not allow anything to break us apart. We never left Abba alone and rotated in and out constantly. When Abba had one of his longer hospital stays in Lenox Hill, one of the nurses even asked me, "How many more of you are there?" I was only able to get through any of this because I have all of you. You share my loneliness, and pain, my fear, and my anger. I take tremendous comfort in knowing we acted exactly how Abba raised us to act. Each of you deserve a personal thank you for everything you have done, but for the sake of time that will have to be done in private. I also want to thank my brothers and sisters-in-law. It was because of all of you that we were able to give Abba all of our time and energy these past few years. It was not easy for any of you to pick up the slack, let your spouse fly in from Israel on a moment's notice, drop everything to drive to Abba for a visit, spend Shabbos or Yom Tov alone so that we could be in the hospital with Abba, and of course have Abba move into your home. Thank you. We know that you love and care for our Abba deeply, and that you are all in the morning. And although you won't be sitting Shiva physically, Baruch Hashem, your hearts and your minds will be. To my friends, you've been a constant source of emotional and mental support for me. You died for my father, you made me laugh on very difficult days, and you cried with me on others. You have carried me through, and you should be so to share and since let's see you. I want to thank David and our 4 wonderful children. It's been a tough few years, and I wasn't always at my best. Thank you for love and concern you've always shown Zadie. His love for you was endless. During the last couple of years when it was too difficult to speak and we didn't have much, I thought you enjoyed. Seeing your faces and hearing your voices on the phone was the only thing that made me smile. Thank you for the many, many trips to visit him, which were long and far and difficult. Although the outcome was not what we wanted or died for, it's unequivocally what a catastrophe we wanted. We have to remember the lessons Zadie taught us, that nothing is more important than family and living a life of MSC Torah. Abba, the battle is over. My job is decided that there needs to be Shemayim. And given the state of the world that we are currently living in, I take tremendous comfort in knowing that the greatest advocate I ever knew will be a mediator for all of us. Hashem will be hard pressed to counter your arguments, as I know well from personal experience. Thank you for bringing me into this world, for giving me the incredible upbringing that I had and the gifts of 7 brothers and sisters that I deeply cherish. Thank you for being such a remarkable role model and for always teaching us that we can Smolos and your Shemayim are the only accomplishments that matter. I love you and I will miss you, but you continue to live within me, those for better or worse. I hear your voice in my head everywhere I go. I ask you for Mechila for all the times I fell short as a daughter and didn't give you the proper power. There were many. I know that you will be watching over all of us as you always have, and I hope that we can continue to bring you the Nafas you so richly deserve.
Hey, visual word. Okay, so John, this having morning. The shul that I grew up in. The shul my father was part of. Helped build the shul. Worked the shul for many years. Different office. This father was president. It's very fitting that he's a line manager should be here. Thank you. Just wanted to briefly speak a little bit to my social, but the whole social. A couple of stories that they should understand who the city was. The last 4 years, very sick, and one could forget, and not even know what his life was about beforehand. You just picture the whole city, the couch, from the bed, the chair. And I just want to say a few stories, some thank yous, so they should have a better understanding. Some stories obviously not repeated in public, but just a couple that could. I was in the car one time with my father, and he had a very high-paying job at the time, very prestigious high-paying job at the time. And he told me he was leaving, he was quitting the job. And now you have your family,
they're still a bit packing the base.
At that time, they're married, and one of my siblings mentioned, he was helping to support those who are sitting learning, our kids, our families.
Right.
Had a lot of big financial goal, and he was putting a very well paid job. And so I asked him why. Why are you leaving? He didn't have another job lined up yet. I said, well, why are you leaving? And just to show his buffer and his sense of right and wrong. And I can't get into specifics, but just the line he said stuck with me forever. He said that when you work around garbage long enough, you start to smell. He left. I don't know. I've never been in that situation. I hope never be in that situation. I don't know if I could do what he did. Tell him that he had sense was right. Inspire. I still think I'm so ready to some more at the community, to help the community, the older people that came. All times of day and night, for legal advice. For others. To show my father's honesty. One time, I remember, we were walking up the street. About a 10-minute walk from here to our house. And there was someone who was walking with us, he was along the way. And unfortunately for this person, he was getting in legal trouble. And he asked my father for inside information so that he could figure out a way to maneuver around. And my father said, can't talk about it. He asked me again, can't talk about it. He asked me again, can't talk about it. This one went on for like 8 minutes, so a 10-minute walk home. The whole walk was this person asking for inside information to other things that are not proper. And even though it was a friend of my father, and even though it was a neighbor of ours, it has to be very uncomfortable to meet a person like that in the street, in the store, whatever it is. But my father's sense of what was the right thing to do, the wrong thing to do, he stood strong. And as many times as he would ask, he said, I can't talk about it, can't talk about it, and that's all he would say. And again, it was inspirational, even at a young age, even at a time in my own life where I didn't necessarily appreciate my father. But it was stays in your head. I want all the grandchildren to know how much they respected or honored. And you do this supposed to be this Shiva with other honor. And by you do this, I don't just mean sit up when they walk in the room, how are they doing? He went out of his way to find out how we could help. Whether it's with the Shiva, whether it's with the brother who was the brother of Ishmael for many years when we were growing up. The title that was there. So now, there were countless times he was there to help me think through difficult situations. I also remember all the time, the first of all, Michelle many times coming over to our house, and my father helping him in difficult situations. And always, it was a split for my father that he could help. Coming to him, never the other way around. And again, something that it stays in your child when you see how your parent acts. Most important thing that I think we need to learn from Anna and Zazie. There was a number of years already. Yeah, I came home from Levaya with my father, someone in the community here. And during Levaya, people got up and spoke. Spoke about how this person was a nice person, a friendly person, joked around a lot. Things of that nature. And I said to my father, this is a friend of my father's, I said to him after Levaya, I said, do you realize what happened at Levaya? No one spoke about any Torah that this person learned. No one. My father said, you're right. Nothing. There's not one speech, one mention of any Torah, any name of the Torah, nothing. My father said, that can't be me. And you gotta look at so. I tried calling her something, I don't know if it's here, I tried to bring a message, I'm glad a friend of mine. I don't think around, not around, I can see. But he decided that that's not gonna be him. And even though he was a high-powered attorney, and he hadn't had the time in his life to open a Gemara for many years. And when you are very successful at something, and then you have to start at something else at the bottom almost, it's very disheartening, it's very hard to do. It's not Gishma. My father had a drive that wouldn't be him. And he had that Habusa for many years. I don't know how many total, many years until he got sick. And even after he got sick a little bit. 2, 3 times a week, and they finished, I think it was 7, 6, 8, I don't know the sessions together. Tomorrow Rashi plugging away, what we call Seder Ladera, took with him. Remember during COVID, Sister Shani and husband, lots of graciously opened their home, I would say, but both the backyard was COVID, even though for Lakewood there's still something called COVID. And they hosted a siyum, and my father made a Shabbos, a long and hard Masechta. They finished with Savusa, and we all came in social distance to the backyard, but we all came in, and it was such a supposed to be part of something like that. To take on something new in your life, to take on something new when you're already established as a successful person in your job, in your community, in your family, and to realize what's the most important, new Latzera, and that's what you take with you to the next world, and to integrate that into you. I want all of his grandchildren, grandsons and granddaughters to know that, to internalize that, to take that message. People ask, what can they do? You can ask last day too. Many more people are going to ask, what can they do? You want to know what you can do? Open a Gemara for my father. Open a Gemara. Take on the Yom Shir. Take a Kabusa. You have a Kabusa, go every night to the Kabusa. Learn more. Learn the Gemara. Learn the Ilah Nishmas, the full time is there, and Yom Day. That's what you can do. That's the greatest thing you can do for him. That's the greatest thing you can do for our Mustafa. I want to thank Dr. Friedman Tzadik, the Vice Boss, Lakewood, who spent thousands of his personal hours on my father, on his position, on his case, while running a business, his own stuff, doing something that we don't know. I want to thank his doctor, Dr. Bacon, I want to thank his Lord Grants, spent hundreds of her hours, all people working for free. Hundreds, thousands of hours on someone they never met. I want to thank others. I'm sorry if I'm people out. It's just the ones that, I'm sorry, don't mean to be there now. I want to thank Richard. Sam now, on Goldsmith, I don't know if he's here, where it's so, who came so many times to visit my father. And it wasn't easy. In my house in Lakewood, my father didn't talk a lot. There were times he couldn't talk at all. There were times he spoke very phrases or sentences, and it's not easy to keep up a one-sided conversation with someone. And there, you came sometimes, and my father wasn't in any condition to see anyone at all. He was in pain, he couldn't do it, and they kept coming and coming. And I know a lot of other friends called and tried, and I don't need to exclude anyone. I want to thank Jerry Weissman, my father's boss, last boss he had. After my father got sick, continued to support a friend and my father for as long as he could, even after my father was no longer able to work. I want to thank all my siblings. Everyone did their role, as has been mentioned a couple times. And everyone played a part. But I also have. In particular, this. Got to the point. And I don't know about else felt the same way. That when I saw my sister Mindy's name on my phone, I didn't want to pick up. Not because of her, I love her, but. It's gonna be good to out again, not good to out, more than to out, what else could go wrong? How many 2 parts of the body are there? You know? And she got the first phone call all the time from the doctor, from the nurse, from the hospitals. She kept her phone with her 24/7 Shabbos, she got with everything. President Danny, who took over the role of being with the kids with his full-time job, so she could do this. I can approve. And you, I think, all my siblings, but it's very special, thank you. I want to thank my mother. All the times that she drove to Lakewood, she drove to the hospital, spent the time with my father, effort, the money. She put into trying to get my father better. I want to thank in particular my mother for guessing shadows. It was not easy to last. My father got worse. And we were in like that situation with 2 times. And my mother said, no, we're asking to caution Rabbanan, respectful Rabbanan, the correct Rabbanan. We're not looking for heterodomy, and we're going to do the right thing up in the halacha, as difficult as it is, and there were some difficult answers. We got some difficult answers. But never wavering from asking shadows and sticking to it. Thank you. So important for the family. And I know that this is not proper rather maybe I should do it. I'm sorry that I'm wrong. I want to thank my wife, my kids. Over our house 2 years. And I wasn't supposed to, but we're living in New York, my home after my wife and children were the ones that spent most of the time with Zadie. And Zadie was not his own fault, but he was difficult, he was sick, he had a lot of needs. He had to be moved, he couldn't handle noise, he had to share life with him, and he talked, it got difficult many times. Again, not doing anything he did, just couldn't help it. And he never, I asked my wife if we could move my father to their house. What's the question he said? And they never wavered, she never wavered, my kids never wavered. My daughter, who's not here right now, she had a baby 2 days ago. It was so close. She tried, she wanted to come today, but it wasn't possible. My other children spent hours, hundreds of hours of their lives when they couldn't be with friends, they couldn't do schoolwork, they couldn't do who knows what. Sitting next to Zadie, talking to him, holding his hand. Thank you, thank you. Tell my family a lot. Before I went to Exeter, in high school, before I went to Exeter, I spoke with my father all the time. I don't know if we had a conversation with, since I was our minister that we didn't fight from the time I was through high school. And it was mostly my fault, mostly my fault. And I want to ask Cecilia, but before I start, I want to say one thing though. When I came home from Exeter, things were different, I was different, things were different. All the years since, which I don't want to say again, how many, but it's a lot of years since. I never, ever, not once, had a focus with an argument, disagreeing with my father again. And I didn't choose the lifestyle that he had raised us necessarily, wasn't against it, but it wasn't how he raised us. And my father supported me and supported my siblings emotionally, financially, everything he could in our new path. And he was so proud of us. He was so proud of us and his grandkids. And he loved it. But there was also the pre-Eretz years. I have a lot of some people who are out. A lot. Sorry. You don't know, so that's a more question. I don't know. Let's start with the general thank you. More than. Great. Let's see. Siblings, and mother, especially. Friends. They're very good. Many who have not been mentioned yet, but been contact and maybe certainly following the college professional career. And so I really a lot of contact with a number of his friends who will do anything for me just because of that relationship. And you know, people here obviously. Sure. Thank you, everybody. Sorry. One thing before I really get started, one thing I saw that after the debate, I heard was a question where not to see it was it's when he got sick before a number of years before he passed away. One of the questions that I saw, one myself, was he was known for his anything, beautiful, wonderful speaking, his voice that was taken from him. I believe the person spent so many years using that co-op for such wonderful things. I believe it's our years of wisdom that gave an answer that's just something, given what we have been experiencing. He said, I think I remember his more language that Hashem, just like Hashem gives you a certain number of words, what does it mean? Hashem gives you a certain amount that you have to accomplish in this world. And that corresponds to enough years, which I use. But occasionally, somebody can use what Hashem gave them to such a high degree, for that they actually accomplished what they needed to accomplish with that co-op before their years went out. They wasted no time. They did everything Hashem wanted. And so when that happened, so it said, I gave you accomplished my need. So you find out yet, and you don't need to force anymore. That's why we're just going to stop and listen. I could not think about that on my father. Circles. Remember when I was little, my first funeral, my father took me this here in this building, this is part of the corner, the little boy, that one of the first rows. And then over here, I didn't have much time to write a speech, but it didn't matter because the speech I really wrote a number of years ago, sir. My father's 70th birthday. It was Israel. Family things. I wrote a letter, private letter. And one of the pieces of it. You hear the expression that all I am is with my parents. And I think it is true. I mean, this is the part that I don't know about that. Good parts. And I want to give you a couple of examples of what I love, and there are many, many more. Some days,
We spoke a little bit about Sundays, usually on last after a speech, difficult with replication material. But here it's just affirming what everyone else has said. Sunday, the one day my father had toilet access, but they very tough. That's not what he did. The first part of the day, driving to Little League, watching the games, and apparently it's okay to joke, some would joke. But given how bad they were, I don't remember, it was really a miracle that he came to any of the games. Yeah. And then it was Toys R Us, mini golf, Basket Robbins, whatever it was, but basketball games Sunday night, maybe the exception would be when it was time off to watch the Giants game, if it was a Giant game that Sunday, but his one day off, they said all he did was drive us around and attend our events, but that's all the thing he did. You know, and I have my own children. I asked my mother, it was last week, I said, this is your fault. But what's my fault? Yeah, my mother, my fault. I said, I spent 6 hours in the car today driving my kids back and forth to different places. This is our fault, I think. But this is what we learned. Rule of extra shopping, I went with my father every year to Quito. I learned a lot of lessons in that store. One that stuck with me was never ask the price for a minute. Every year I went, I would say, how much is, I would ask, I started to get proficient at picking them out, and I would ask, how much is this one, how much is this one? If my father told me asking the price, said, we don't ask how much amidst the costs. If it's good, if it's a nice one, just get it. The way to live. Hard to live up to the extent that. Also, yeah, I wasn't good at that like my father, not that good. He was hard. But I knew that even with the 4 boys in the family, and even with some of the in-laws, we didn't need 14 Lululemon Rogan sets or 18 Lululemon Rogan sets, and I don't know how year from year it got bigger and bigger. Until, of course, he just coincidentally bought a number of sets for people who coincidentally maybe weren't in the best financial situation. Every year. That's it. Firm. People spoke that. Sundays was firm, non-stop, doorbell ringing event, and it is in many houses. He didn't sit more than a couple of minutes, and he didn't sit more than a couple of minutes at any event, but especially as a firm. Getting up constantly to doctor. 1 year ago, I remember the first year he brought me in, said he was having trouble with his wrists. And he had me writing checks for hours. 1 year, just for the heck of it, I calculated up the number, I can see the number. I could not believe the amount of dollars that were flying out of that house of her, and it was all day long. That was just what he was, and it wasn't just her, that was one time resign. It's just stuff. It's tough, no, it's I think I mentioned a chick, that's not the pride. And how I'm a religiously obedience. A friend of mine once said there are many Jewish people, not as many than ALD. And it's true. Some people are comfortable. They don't want to change, but that was not the case. It was not up. I remember so much pride when we started to the smicha, major perfume. Who could ask for a better role out of the person who always is growing. Oh, the siblings will confirm this on page, I believe the story. Not lying. Who went to great lengths to teach us not to lie. To this day, I can feel his eyes on my forehead if I'm ever about to tell a lie. He would say, oh, I see an L forming on your forehead. Are you sure you're telling the truth? You sure? Because now I see an I. You know, it's really broke. Totally broke. That's how he always. But what a lesson in Midrash Secretary, maybe not exactly how I would do it, but as people said, he was so straight. If anyone ever asked me to do something, I was 100% Yosher. Are you kidding? You know my father, I said, we've done times. I said, they use him to measure if a ruler is straight. That's my father. As other people mentioned, emphasis on Gedolah, Rabbanim. From when I was young to this day, how he went out of his way to instill respect. Gedolah was already close to them. I was on the phone with Lawrence-Cedarhurst on the way here. a few times, asking if I was going home. The pictures that show my children. And in fact, when Stein passed away, my daughter Miss Yester said, I want Miss Yester to come, because I said, with the goal of the money, I want them back. It's true. And I remember also when he was sick, and he was upset. One of the things that calmed down my daughter so bad was when I sit there with the Bible bag, if you start reading, never calmed down. As we've always said, the most important thing in life is his family. I do not agree with a tremendous amount my father said he did for me, say, growing up. Our relationship changed when I took a job actually being a driver back and forth to one of his places of work, quite far in New Jersey. We spent a lot, even that morning. We had been in a fight the night before, a serious fight. And that morning I showed up for work, drove home, and it took a few days, but my relationship with him changed tremendously. Because I came to a realization that I do not always understand or agree with everything. But there was not a selfish motive in this man thought. He did what he thought was right. For you, for other people, it didn't make a difference. Didn't matter the consequences. And when I started to realize that none of it was for his own benefit, changing my entire relationship, we could still disagree, but I was able to one feeling about who he was and what he was saying. There's so much to say. When my siblings spoke, I've been going through a rough time. So, it was college. And explained everything that's going on last year. She said, how do you move? What's your response to good professional students? And I said, I have this voice in my head. It's my fault. And it says, you don't want to get it. You don't want to do it. What do you mean you don't want to? You have to get up and do it. It's just echoes in my head over and over. And I get up. And I do it. Thanks. When we moved to Israel 14 years ago, in fact, last year, I said to my wife, after my anniversary, I think I'm gonna regret the time that since I was my parents. I do. Really want to see you. I do.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of those functions,
I'm gonna finish off this letter of the father's birthday with Mark, you know, when Yosef came to the house and told me about to sit, he saw his father's face. And some of the Farshim explained to me that he didn't actually see his father's face. The lessons that he learned from his father were so strongly ingrained in him that he could not do anything against him. He was incapable. That was his father's face. That it was ingrained in how he acted at all times. Theoretically, a hard concept to understand, but not if you knew my father. Not if you grew up with. I can never, ever emulate it. But so, some of these things, I can give on information. And as I said to many more, even more than ever here. I asked for you, number one, I left out. For all. That's all things, I mean, that's what this. If I look angry, it's something cause of hurt. I love you for my heart. Wish. finish off, I wish you knew where you're. You guys about.
Oh, service. Thank you. Very good study about. What you say the whole thing. This is the new day. This is awesome. Really good podcast. Nicole, go sit down there. Thank you for everything. And that was 20% for 4 straight weeks. It's my brother, it's me. His wife, his children. Really, my father. As was mentioned, he knew who you were. So I was there. I came a few times a week. It was not easy. I was only there for 45 minutes, an hour. It was very, very difficult last week. This is a father. And I was the talk to him. And it made me feel like a person. As everyone already mentioned, I'll just mention again, I was thinking about my father. Unfortunately, I picture myself up here way too many times in the last 4 years. It was a mission on Turkey Elvis, the the first part. Was a social forum, all kind. I'll dim, I'll endless, I'll show. If that's not my fault, I don't know what is. Dim is professional, clear, how he acted, there was no loopholes. You did what was right. And you didn't do it. There was no going around it. Honest. Father, I don't recall a time my father ever lied in my presence. I don't remember a time. He always told the truth. He hated checking. Hated it with passion. And then you get to the last, I'll show him. And you start to think it's very difficult. Someone who's so mocked on din and so mocked on endless is probably going to rub people the wrong way. And yet, I'll show him. My father loved peace. Even the people who he maybe was against in court, they liked my father. They themselves liked my father. How's that possible? Because my father cared about everyone. He cared about every single person. There's a running joke in the family that so and so is the ninth child. So and so is the ninth child. We said that it always changes who we're talking about. Who is the ninth child? It's because if you were a friend of one of us, you were the ninth child. And you were the only ninth child at that time. Because that's what my father cared about, what we cared about. Father's dedication to family and to Torah in general
bunch of my siblings, I don't mention how they fought with my father when they were younger. For sure, I didn't have that. Because I was sent, as the youngest in the family, I was already sent to the yeshivas from the start. And when it came to Torah, my father, there were no more exceptions. If that's what the Torah wanted, that's what the Rebbe said, and that's it. It doesn't matter if my father wanted something else. If I said that this is what I already said, there was no such end of conversation. There was no fight. That's what Torah said, fine, so that's what Torah said, and I don't care anymore. And I not only don't care, I'll help you do what I didn't want you to do. Because that's what Torah said. That's what your Rebbe said. That's all that matters. He used to drive me to yeshiva every Sunday, from 5th grade through 8th grade. Every single Sunday, he would drive me to yeshiva and pick me up. That was his time to spend with me and bring me to Torah learning, and that's what he wanted to do. We could have had a carpool. He didn't want it. He said, forget it, I had a carpool through 4th grade. And then he ended it. And he took me every single Sunday. There was nothing more important to his children than what was important to them. I remember my first L1 learning in Lakewood. I was home on Thursday. And I needed to get a bounce back on Friday to get back to yeshiva on time for Seder. And unfortunately, there was some extra traffic on the belt. We just missed the bus. Most people in that situation, okay, they take the bus on Sunday morning, they come home for Shabbos, it's just one Friday for a Seder. My father drove me to Lakewood, so I wouldn't miss it. And then turned around and drove straight back home. That's what he cared about. The last few years have been extremely difficult. My father was about to talk. He used to, for me, I thought he was joking, but every Shabbos when it was cloudy outside, he would go walk to shul. I would take a coat because I thought it was gonna rain. He said, have a coat. I don't want rain, have a coat. And he wouldn't take a coat. And usually it didn't rain. He was about to die. And Hashem showed us through his father's body what Emunah is. How the body is so complicated. How everything needs to run perfectly. And I can think of no better person to show what Emunah is from the physical growth of my father. That is what he was. Someone who was about Emunah. He believed in the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Just want to ask him if you know all the times he didn't treat you properly. All the times he was frustrated at you. Especially when this last years. All the times that they didn't come, they should have. I left you even though you never left me. Oh, I should have.
Going to conclude the Levaya with a Kelwale from his friend, Cancer Burning Beer.
שופכי בדרומים, עמסי נכונה על כנפי השכינה, במהרוס קדושים וטהורים, כזורקיה מזהירים, את נשמס, ובפועל חיים זאב, ונביום מאיר, שהולך ליומם, בעבור, שכל משפטו נודרים לצפחו, ומזכירים את משמעותו. בגן עדן תהא מנוחתו, לכם באור הרחמים, יסתירהו בסייסק נפלו לימים, ויצרור החיים, את נשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתו. ידוח בשלום עם משפחתו, ולומר אמן.
We're now going to continue to Levaya. Gedalia, Ragissia, and Eli are going to be going to Eretz Yisrael. The rest of the family is going to be coming back from the airport and sitting in Shiva here at the Werblowsky residence at 267 Broadway. Shabbos will be at 8 o'clock, Mincha at 2 p.m. and Ma'ariv at 9 p.m. The first minyan at the base of will be this evening at 9 p.m. for Ma'ariv. We're going to ask the Shpacha walks out first, followed by everybody. I'm going to ask the grandsons and the sons-in-law will help Levaya, Harvey, as we go to the parking lot, and we walk behind them to escort him to Levaya, in front of the parking lot. So here's the program. Here's the family come out first, then we let the family walk out first, and then follow them.
Isn't it a vertic? Yeah, looks like it. Looks like a vertic. A vertic. Doesn't it look?
Oh, yeah, it's the blonde.
Yeah, the blondie. Yeah,
Also can't look so good.
yeah, she can walk. That's it.
She's come.
I don't know. See.